Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Performance Mindset Show. I'm your host, Amy Calandrino, CEO of Beyond Commercial and author of the book From Perfect to Real. This show is all about leveling up in business, real estate, leadership, and life by shifting how you think, grow, and lead. Each week, I bring you real conversations with top performers and mindset experts who are building big lives on their own terms. If you're ready to ditch perfection, trust your path, and grow with intention, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and let's get right into it. So today's guest doesn't just talk about business growth. She builds it over and over again. So I'm excited to welcome Dena Jalbert to the Performance Mindset Show. If you've seen her profile photo, you've seen the shirt EBITDA, which is short for earnings before interest, tax, and amortization, which says everything about how you approach building real value in business. You're the founder of Align Business Advisory Services. It's one of the top women-led M&A firms in the Southeast. You've worked with companies of all different shapes and size, from Fortune 500 giants to kind of like the overlooked businesses that just need the right strategy to shine. And across your career, you've done over $3 billion.
Yes.
It's amazing how it adds up.
The ticker goes quick.
Yeah. And you bring a rare mix of big firm expertise, but a little bit more of a personal roll your sleeves up kind of commitment. So you're right here in Winter Park, and Dena's leading a team that's been named the best mid-market M&A consulting firm in the Southeast multiple years in a row. Passionate about growing businesses, creating opportunities, and helping entrepreneurs see the true potential of what they've built.
Yes,
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Wow,
I know,
what an intro.
I
love it.
I know, like I kind of like riff and like figure it out. I mean, that's one of the cool things about ChatGPT is like if you have an idea in your head and you just go and then eventually like
it just comes together.
Just come together. It's like putting together like a musical piece.
Yes, I love it. Love it.
So I'm glad we got to get together.
Yes.
So I love your new profile picture. Is it newish, right?
Newish, I think. Yeah.
So you have EBITDA right there, front
everywhere.
and center. Talk to people that I know a lot of people own businesses and they know profit and loss and all those kinds of things. But I think the holy grail that people look at is that when they're looking to transact and trade a business.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So we joke that EBITDA is the foundation of everything we do. We have it on the walls in the office. We have hats, we have shirts, like you name it. And it's really where business valuation begins, but and the reason it is where it starts is because it is the cash flow foundation, right, for any business. It's really meant to be an indicator of how profitable a business is. And so many smaller business owners and entrepreneurs, they focus on the cash that's in the bank and they don't pay quite as much attention to, what their profit margin profile is or how that has shifted over years. And they just kind of gain a comfort with whatever just happens to be in the bank. We call attention to EBITDA as its own metric, because that's how the investors and acquirers look at it. If that number is consistent and growing, then that predicts the health of a business. And so that's always the first place someone looks when you're looking at a transaction. And so we have it plastered on everything because I always say if a business owner doesn't know what it is, we'd love to help them understand what it is, but I would hope that they know what it is. And if so, let's have a conversation about, your EBITDA history and how that can transact in the market. But, business value really is, it's a math equation of EBITDA times, a market rate, and that's enterprise value, right? So it really is the foundation that all negotiations and talks of enterprise value start with.
Well, and I think different industries, the multiple can kind of change over time depending on, the whole marketability and desirability of a business where you could be just like a 1 or even less than a 1.
Oh, you can't. I mean, it's funny. I got my hand slapped for some other press I did recently. We were talking about a multiple we got for a roofing client of ours, and it was like 13 and a half times. And it was a wonderful outcome for them. And someone was kind of questioning whether or not that was real. I was like, it absolutely was. It was a high growth business, no customer concentration, wonderful margin profile. tripling in size year over year, young owner, had all of these great things. And so EBITDA is the place you start. Right. But as I was just kind of talking about, your management team, your customer base, your margin profile, your geography, where your business is located and who your clients and or products that you service, where those are located. If they're in high demand, high growth areas like Florida or Texas or wherever, that has more value than others. And so I always see valuation as kind of like one of those old slide rules. It can slide from one side to the next. It can be 1 times, it can be 10 times. And there are attributes to a business that will, dictate kind of where it slides on that lever.
Well, and I think it's not something that's like publicly available too. Like you have to be in it day in and day out to understand that. Otherwise, let's just say that you've already done a transaction and that you're capable of getting like a 6 times multiple. Sure. And, maybe somebody else that they primarily do commercial real estate brokerage and they're kind of like piddling around and doing some here and there. Maybe they tell you like only a 2 times.
That's right.
Because they don't have like the same resources and the same like expertise and they don't understand the nuances of it.
Yeah. I always compare it to healthcare. Like you can go to your primary care doctor, with a heart condition and they'll be able to note a few things and help you a little bit. But when it comes to really diagnosing and treating and getting into the details, you want a specialist. So it's kind of the same idea. We take a partnership approach in working with service providers of all types, realtors, financial advisors, wealth managers, trust and estate attorneys, commercial bankers, because they all have really great growth mindset and growth thought leadership and services that they're providing to these businesses along the way. But when it comes to that liquidity event, they'll have some definitely great insight and contribution, but it isn't their number one focus. So it really takes all of us, right? So, to put our arms around these folks and help them figure out what success looks like. So that's a really good metaphor, how I like to think about it. We're kind of the specialists with the scalpel. We eat, sleep, and breathe this private company M&A every day. We know who the buyers are because you're right. It's not a public market. It's not like real estate where you can throw a for sale sign. There's not an MLS listing.
Nor do you want to.
Oh gosh, no. No, you definitely don't. You definitely don't. And I think there's a misnomer. Yeah. There's a bit of a misnomer. And because, just within the last 15, 20 years has this kind of smaller business M&A really taken off. Prior to that, it was just kind of more of a real estate transaction, or you sold to an individual, or maybe you sold to a bigger competitor of yours, but it just didn't happen as much. Now there's so much more money coming after these businesses than there ever were. So it's kind of a nuanced situation too. Folks are like, okay, well, I know I need to do something, but what? And I'm not sure how or who. And so just getting paired with those right service providers to be able to discern what's the right path.
Yeah, I call it a bit of like a consortium. I think you want to work with you have your attorney, you have your insurance, you have everyone that's on this team, your financial advisor, and everybody's got to be like working together. Like, 100%. Even when it's like commercial real estate, I think the first thing you got to see is like, is it insurable? Yeah. Like, or, when you're buying like a business, like what, you got to understand, maybe even to the business you're acquiring doesn't have the proper insurance. Can you get insurance? Like, what are the real costs? And you have to recast everything all over again.
Totally. We all only know what we know. And entrepreneurs, I find we, by definition, are very type A and try to figure things out for ourselves and try to, really get at the root of it. However, we all only know what we know. So if it's not something you're doing consistently every day, you're going to overlook those types of details, which can be really expensive, mistakes, and not, completely unintended and completely subconscious. But, and in what we do, you have one shot to transact your life's work.
Yeah.
So, those little mistakes are hugely expensive. And frankly, there's an emotional toll because you're just like, am I ever going to get a chance to do it again and not make that mistake again? Probably not, Right. And so now some folks are serial entrepreneurs and get a chance to do that. But for the most part, if you've run a 35-year family business and you're transacting it now, this is your one shot. And that's where a lot of the bad press around M&A comes from. Those are the bad deals where things went awry or something was missed or some money got left behind because it wasn't intentional or malicious. It's just you only know what you know. So if you don't have all those service providers and all of those thought leaders around the table, you're going to miss something. Like, for example, for us, I can tell you what the market has to bear for your business, but what you're going to do with that money, where it goes, how does it fit into your portfolio? That is not my bailiwick. That is way above my pay grade. But let's get all those people at the table and let's have a plan, for that. We had a client once who came to me and he said, I met with my wealth manager. They didn't have any children. They just wanted to do philanthropic giving after they had their liquidity event. And he said, I only need like 7 million roughly to be able to do what my wife and I want to do. And so that's her number. And I said, well, that's fantastic, but your business is worth 55. So what are we doing with the excess there? And I don't want to just like go get that for you and you not have a plan. Like, where are you investing it? How are you going to protect it? You don't have children. So then let's talk about like, where does that go and what kind of trust and things do you want to put in, and again.
Oh my gosh. Did they think that their business was worth like 15, 20?
He thought maybe 10 if he was lucky. And so that's a really good example of, like you mentioned earlier, if someone came in and undershot him, he probably would have been thrilled with it, but would have left behind like tremendous value. It was just a phenomenal business.
Wow.
And it's such a great story. He was a minority veteran-owned business. He started it with his own two hands, grew it to over 300 people in 25 years. And then he and his wife were ready to just move on to their next chapter of retirement and life and wanted to go give back to their community. And we were connected. And so, yeah, he had very low expectations, which is great. But sometimes, though, with that comes an unintended lack of planning.
Yeah.
And you don't want that, to have it. So I'm like, what are you going to do with all this? I don't want to go get it for you and you not have a plan. And
no, you got to have a plan.
You got to have a plan. So it takes a village, as I always say.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about, what you're doing, and we'll drill into that more. But before you founded your own company, you had a career in Big Four consulting and Fortune 500 leadership. What was the moment when you decided to create something of your own?
Such a great question. So it's twofold. So I'm also a mom of two girls, and at the time they were much younger. And I distinctly remember I was away on a business trip, and it was just a boondoggle. It was a golf, in finance, there's a lot of golf that happens, right? So it was this investor retreat in Atlanta, and I went, and I don't play golf though. I'm really good at the 19th hole.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm not so good. So I was like, hey, you all go play. I'm going to work. I'll meet you for dinner. Went to the spa for an hour that afternoon while they were out all day playing, 6 hours of golf. And I remember getting a lot of heat from my partners at the time about going to the spa and not socializing. And I was like, well, just because I don't play golf doesn't mean that, like, I made money for us while you were out playing golf. And okay, I took an hour for myself. And then at that same day, my youngest daughter was the flag bearer at school at Pledge and Prayer, and I missed it. And I missed it for this kind of unnecessary trip that I was getting some grief for. And I was like, you know what? There's a way in our industry. I'm a firm believer that finance doesn't have to be so squared corner, and it doesn't have to be like it always has been. So it hadn't been traditionally welcoming for women, and I wanted to kind of change the narrative. So that was the first thing. But then the second kind of catalyst in parallel, because it was with the same firm that I was with, we were buying small businesses, and I was watching all of these business owners go through these M&A transactions unrepresented. I mean, they would have an attorney maybe, and a well-intended CPA, but sometimes one that just wasn't as well versed in M&A, and so wasn't, giving them a lot of really strategic thought guidance, nor were they giving them really strategic thought as to whether or not the transaction was the right one.
Right.
A lot of the time it's just, hey, someone knocked on my door and said, I'd like to buy your business. And I said, okay. At least that's how I used to approach it when I was buying businesses. And, it's not competitive. And so when you're talking,
I call it like a coronation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you don't have anything to compare it in. So I watched all these business owners go through the process. They would get frustrated. They'd leave money behind. There's one gentleman who didn't understand the terms of the deal he was signing, despite us trying to explain it. But at the same time, like his lawyer and his CPA weren't doing their fiduciary role and explaining it to him either. And the day before closing, we send the funds flow around, and he's like, why is this $2 million light? And he runs a fleet-based business, and it's cash-free, debt-free, and he had to leave money behind to take care of the notes on all the trucks. And no one had fully explained what that meant from a dollars and cents perspective to him on his team. And he felt fleeced, and that I went home that night and it didn't feel good. So those two kind of things really jumped out at me, and it was ironic because they were parallel in time, where I was like, you know what, I can create something to serve this market that's underserved, but then build my firm in a way that allows whatever life looks like to be lived, in addition to being professionally challenged.
Life is for living.
Life is for living.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, listen, I'm a deal junkie. I love transacting.
Right.
I love working. I love being professionally challenged. But it doesn't mean I have to sacrifice every other single component of my life. But for that, I'm a big believer in running a professional service firm like a business, just like any manufacturing widget.
Yeah.
And if you staff it appropriately and you have the right tools and resources, you don't have to kill, one thing for the other. And those two things, my husband actually was the third leg of that stool. He heard me talking about, both of these issues ad nauseum, and was like, you need to go create this for yourself. And so I had a panic attack after doing it and shook it off. And here we are almost 8-9 years later. So,
isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's wild.
I worked in the legal side of things, and I saw a lot of business owners make really poor commercial real estate choices that were oftentimes cataclysmic to them. But then conversely, I would see business purchases and sales, because we did a lot of those.
Yeah.
And the business owners that own their own commercial real estate had the ability to either lease it back to the person that was buying their business, or to sell it to the person buying their business.
Sure.
Or they had a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
So to become their own landlord. And I just felt like a lot of people did not bring that up.
Yes.
And so then I was like,
Yeah.
all of the people at these big firms really want to go after the big institutional corporate deals. But there's this whole, middle
100%.
middle of the road, small, medium-sized businesses in Orlando that don't have the right kind of commercial real estate advice, and they could build a lot of wealth and then work strategically towards that.
Exactly.
Maybe potentially multiple liquidity events.
100%. Yeah. And it creates, wealth for them in different channels, right?
Yeah.
It's diverse. And so that's where, as I was saying earlier, we want to make sure that folks have thought that through,
Right.
Because I'll say, listen, I don't have line of sight to what other investments you have, whether that's real estate, a stock portfolio or whatever, and so you need to look at that holistic picture.
Yes.
And discern for what you need as an individual, right? It's the same, I would imagine, with commercial real estate too, because it's like you want to make this investment. What kind of return do you want to have on it? What kind of income do you want it to give to you at some point in time in the future? Beyond your owner occupying it today, all of those questions we always say that there's no wrong answer to, but let's flush out all that information and data. So then you can make an informed decision about what's next after that, what happens next after that, versus just, entrepreneurs, I always say, are hustlers. We like to react opportunistically to things in the market. And while that works out a lot, sometimes maybe you jump a little quick and maybe aren't where you want to be too. So there's two sides.
Well, I was just meeting with an entrepreneur yesterday, and he bought his office building, but they're all more hybrid, and they do, great business, but they're not really in person anymore. It's I'm not really using it. And he's like, should I lease or sell? And I'm like, well, most of the time, depending on your age and what you need for money, it may make sense to be a landlord.
Sure.
And keep it and see the upside and appreciation. But that's like a question for your wealth planner, like your financial advisor. Like I don't want to like guess on that, but generally, like you probably can get like generally. And I'm not gonna be the broker that sends you in your inbox like later on today an agreement to like list your building and put a sign in the ground. Even though it could be really lucrative for me and my family, I want to do it like what's best for you.
100%. We say the same thing. You know, we don't bank businesses just to bank them, like to market them. Just because a deal is available to them doesn't mean it's the right one.
Yes.
I just hung up the phone with a group, a healthcare services group we worked with earlier in the year, and not all of there's 9 partners in this practice, and there were 3 of them that just were on the fence about timing and whether they wanted to do something. And I said, listen, then we're going to pull back. Then we're not going to do something here, because unless you're all in unison and on the same page from a timing perspective, no deal's going to be the right one, because it's going to fit some of you and not the others. And you all have an equal ownership here. You built this together. And so don't just, a hospital group had come to them and they were like, yeah, it's kind of mediocre. And I was like, this all sounds like a just because situation. I was like, take a pause and think about what you all need as individuals first. And then they just called me today and they're like, okay, we think we've got it figured out. And we think we're finally kind of ready to look at things. And so we're the same way. Like, we're not going to rush to have you just go out and do something for the sake of doing it. Because that's, while that might be beneficial in the short term for the service providers around the table, it's not sustainable.
Well, and conversely, I'm sure if you're feeling things in the marketplace where, wow, it's a great time to bring it to market, you're like, come on, giddy up.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
We gotta go. We gotta go. Like, now's a good time.
Well, I will say, if you are a roofing business in Central Florida right now, you should, that's one that I'm like, even if you're not thinking about it, you should. It's an industry right now that we're just seeing a tremendous amount of demand from an acquisition perspective. And so
it's probably like car washes in commercial real estate a couple of years ago.
Yes.
They were like the belle of the ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always something every area. Car washes, heating and air conditioning businesses have been, any home service, I joke, is white hot right now. The idea is, these investors, what they do, instead of going and buying like big $3 billion business, they're going to go buy 25 smaller ones in an area, the highly fragmented. So then it creates that same scale, gets them to that same dollar amount over time, but they're easier to acquire because you only have to, you buy them and, you only have to underwrite each of those smaller businesses versus a much larger one.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's where you see they own like the big portfolio of car washes, heating and air conditioning. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of groups. Well, they'll own 25, 30 different brands within an area. Roofing is another one right now that we're seeing a lot. We saw the same thing in healthcare services. A lot of, consolidation in, dermatology or right now cardiology of all things. And these are products and services that people tend to consume hyper-local, like in your backyard. And by virtue of that, there's tens of thousands of them in a local geography. And so an investor's like, well, geez, if I can buy 20 of them and create $1 billion business out of that, then I'll just do that. And so that phenomenon is what has been really fueling a lot of the big multiples and a lot of the demand we're seeing for M&A right now.
That makes a lot of sense because there's just a lot more volume.
That's right.
Trading that's helping to gain that momentum.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's interesting. That's why I love having the podcast. I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
So over the course of your career, you've been a part of more than $3 billion in M&A transactions. Was there a point along the way where you stepped back and thought, wow, this is exactly where I was meant to be?
Yes. I have a pinch me moment like that every year.
Yeah.
There's always one deal every year that makes me step back and just, it's our why, to kind of take that from Simon Sinek. But, last year it was funny. I keep talking about roofing, but it was a client of ours had a roofing business out in Leesburg, Florida, actually.
Okay.
And it's just a great all-American story. Came from Puerto Rico with $200 in his pocket, started a roofing business. It got some momentum. All of a sudden he had, 60 employees, and we transacted it for him. I think it was a $23 million transaction. And I bought my roof from him, and he was sitting in my living room talking to my husband. And he's like, you changed my life. Like, to think about where I came from to where I am and the opportunity. And that's what we do, is we bring opportunity to, founders and family-owned businesses, that these opportunities would, I think would pass them by, but for kind of purposefully and strategically being brought to them. Because as I mentioned earlier, you only know what you know. So there's at least one of those every year that makes me stop and go, oh, that's our why. That was an excellent multiple on that transaction. The market was really strong. It's a really great partner that fit his business well too, because he's a young guy. He's like, I'm not looking to retire, but now I can go on and continue to earn more and make more and have future multiple liquidity events. And I want to do that. And that's really validating. And so, that $3 billion, I say, is just a lot of families we've been able to help. And that's my favorite part of what it is we do. So, and we have an exceptional team. And as I was telling that story earlier about starting my business for personal reasons, there's an element of that with everyone in our firm. We all are kind of refugees from larger institutions, where we said, listen, we know we can do it a little bit differently. We can do it better. We can have some quality of life. You read all these horror stories about all these, kids on Wall Street who are burning out, and that it's such a young age, and it just doesn't have to be that way. So I look around at my team and I'm just so blessed. They're all so smart and they care so much about our clients. Hence, it's what drives that $3 billion and, those great stories for each of our clients.
Well, it sounds like you're a bit of head, you know what you're doing. You've been doing this a long time, but there's a lot of heart and empathy to it. Which I think is the people always say it's like business and there's no emotion involved. And I would greatly disagree with small, medium-sized businesses. Often, let's just say I'm representing someone, I'm calling on a center to get them a space to lease. And they're like, what is their credit? They are the credit. Yeah. If anything fails with the closely held businesses, it's ultimately them. It's their credit. There's not these layers to think. Right. It's highly personal. It's a closely held business.
Right. So. Yeah, it's their lives. It's their, these businesses fund, their kids going to school, their retirement, what their life looks like, their ability to, have healthcare and take care of themselves and the people that work for them. And so we take that responsibility really seriously. And in M&A, it was born on Wall Street, right? Mm-hmm. And it has come down market to these smaller businesses. But for a long time, it still preserved a lot of that shark, to your point, cold, transactional mentality to it. And that's what I was seeing is missing. Because you can't take that cookie cutter approach. That's why we even say EBITDA is the foundation to valuation, but it's only the place that it starts. Because the story of how a business gets started and how it grew and the intangible values that add value to it, it's more than just dollars and cents. So same thing, you can't commoditize a business transaction like, a $1 billion transaction on Wall Street where there's a board of directors and everybody's already wealthy and it's already really insulated and to your point, it's not as personal. Here it's 100% personal. It affects their lives. It affects their families directly. And that is something, we joke that we're also part psychologists too.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
Okay, good.
Because it's I find, when someone's had a business and they've decided they want to retire or they want to, move forward in a different direction or whatever, it's a big deal. Like that's their identity. And it's so what kind of tools do you deploy in those situations?
Well, we have a lot of conversations before someone even signs on with us as a client. We meet with them extensively just to make sure that they've really wrapped their head around this life change.
Right.
You know, I had a client once say to me, I was like, you know, are you looking at, a question to them was, how long, you know, do you want to stay on for a little while? He was a younger gentleman. You know, do you want to stay on for a little while? Are you ready to retire? No wrong answer to those questions. Just trying to get a sense of where you are in your personal life, like, and what you're looking to do. He's like, yeah, you know, I'd stick around for a little while. You know, for the right money. You know, it's like doing a nickel. You just refer to it as like doing 5 years in prison when you say do a nickel. So like that tells me you're not looking to want to work too much. And that's totally fine. What it does is it informs us like, okay, we need to focus on groups that already have institutional management that can come in and take over, you know, your seat.
I've never heard that saying, doing a nickel.
Right? Isn't that funny? I was a Midwestern guy.
You had to like, did you stop? Did you already know what that meant?
I grew up in the Midwest, and I think, I don't know, maybe that was a Midwestern euphemism or something. I'm not sure. But I was like, I stopped. I was like, but you're comparing it to prison. I was like, no, it needs to be what you want it to be.
Right.
And so we have to have some of those personal kind of psychological conversations and like talk to you about your family. You know, do you have any kids or, you know, nieces, nephews, cousins, brothers, sisters, whomever, you know, anyone in your extended family that you want to take into consideration with this? Are they working in the business? Are they not? You know, and what role do they want to have? And And so you really got to have to coach them through all of this. And at the root of it, we always say, we're asking you all these questions, not in a way to guide or judge. It's just to get you to think about it so that you can decide what success looks like for you. We've also, though, worked with some family psychologists who have come and sat, especially when there's multiple generations at hand. You know, we worked with a business in Jacksonville that had 3 different generations. The original patriarch had already passed. The second generation was running it, but they were on their way to retirement. And the third generation was obviously much broader. And there was a little bit of a tug of war as to how that was all going to work. And so we had to get, you know, some folks in to help them work through some of those family dynamics too. And I'm always like, that's, it's just one more service provider that alongside the wealth manager and the CPA, and that, you know, that we all needed to have another person in the circle, you know, in order to get them to talk through it. And I always recognize, I'm like, listen, this is all you've known for so long, you know, and the idea of that change is a big one. That's why for us, we are on their timeline. I will always inform people when the market is strong, but that's just because I don't want them to not know that. If they're still personally not ready, that's a, you know, a trade-off they're making a choice over versus having a lack of awareness. You know, we never try to force anyone to be on a timeline other than what they want for themselves. But, you know, when they've seen that logo in the little league fields forever and that's theirs and that's changing, it is definitely very emotional and challenging. And that's why we put a very big team of people around them to make sure they feel really comfortable, because it's, again, you get one shot at doing it.
Well, it's all about educating, but ultimately it's their decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and gathering all the information and then you're making the best possible decision. And is it now? Is it later? Is it never?
That's right.
You know, I think it's really important too, though, for business owners to be mindful and really understand the value of their business and what their ultimate goals are. And, you know, what is the purpose of their business? Why are they having the business? And, I think that's just a huge part that people have to think about.
100%. One of the things we like to do for folks is we'll create a market analysis for them. And that's comprised of 2 key data sets in it. And we do this free of charge for folks because I just want them to have the information for that exact reason. So they can just sit and make more informed choice as to timing and life and all of those things. So what that is we will give them a market map that shows M&A activity in their industry Because one of the questions we get is timing. Like, when's a good time? I'm like, well, there's your own clock and calendar, but then there's the market clock and calendar, right? Which you can appreciate. Any of us want to, buy low, sell high type of thing. So we like to, prepare that to show, listen, there's a lot of activity happening in your industry right now. So you might want to pay attention to that. Or if there's not, that's also a good indicator of you've either got some time or, maybe now is not the time. Then we will also put together for them a valuation analysis specific to their business. And so we'll ask, prior to this, we'll ask for a handful of financial data points. And so we'll put together a market analysis for them, evaluation. It's usually within, 1 to 2 turns of, in a range, but it's like, hey, this is what we think a transaction looks like for you, based on where your business is today. And then that's a really good, jumping off point to say, okay, for example's sake, if that says your business is worth $20 million and, you look at me and say, I was really hoping for more like 40. Great. You're not hurting my feelings.
But then you need to do some things to make the output 40.
That's exactly right. So let's talk about the gap, right? And let's, I always say it's like in real estate, do you want to add on, fix up, improve, or whatever to make, to add that value incrementally? Or are you okay with taking a little less and having, someone else's vision and doing that? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a personal trade-off choice that you have to make for yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present you with all the data, and then we'll just talk through it. So, and I would rather have that conversation with someone years in advance when they have time to go pull the levers.
And and they don't, I've seen so many times where like someone has like a health issue and they don't have a line of succession, and then the value of business gets obliterated.
Totally. And, there's nothing more defeating than a business owner comes to us and they're like, I'm personally ready now. Like my light is on. And then we value the business and it's undervalued and they're frustrated by that. They're, sad, and now they're having to undo that getting over that personal hurdle of finally being ready for the change. And that's really disheartening. So it's better to like, hey, and we'll do this analysis and roll it forward anytime. We just did it for a client in California who came to us about 2.5 years ago, had gotten some unsolicited offers, was interested in M&A. And we looked at it and we're like, okay, you're worth, roughly X number of dollars. But we think, if you did X, Y, and Z, and these were really young guys in their 30s, you could double the value of the business. And they were like, you know what? We're going to take that prescription. And they did. They went over the last 2 years, implemented those changes, diversified their revenue, expanded, and they're now twice as valuable as they were then. So that's where those having a look just gives you a really good sense of, opportunity. Just tells you where you're, and then you can sit with all those other advisors you were talking about. You can sit with your wealth advisor and say, okay, here's what this plan is. If my business is going to be worth this, does that fit into the broader strategy? And it just gives them something tangible to hold on to plan with and make an informed decision with versus going off emotion.
Well, that was another reason why I got into this is like so many people, they fall in love with a space or they fall in love with something and then their whole emotions can cloud their overall decision making. Right. And not that, there's women's intuition and there's certain emotional, but at the end of the day, data driven decisions or data, however you say it, like everybody says it different, tomato.
Yeah.
But it is paramount to do.
100%. And that's where having folks like yourself, someone who can help us see things objectively.
Yes.
I always say, even just for myself, I'll take my husband to doctor appointments because I'm the worst patient for myself. Mm-hmm. I don't ask questions. I get all in my own head. I don't, I'm not listening for all the details. And I think it's the same for a lot of business owners in their day to day.
For the doctor appointment, my husband's like, what did they say? And I'm like, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I just set up a follow-up appointment about something. And he's like, what did they say? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to like get back to work.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what about this? And like, oh yeah, I didn't ask that. So it takes folks, in any growth oriented decision, well, not just growth oriented, but any business decision, when you've got a trusted advisor who can help you like weed through the emotion and see it for its practicality is paramount. I actually get frustrated when I, as a business owner, work with service providers who just look at me and like, well, tell me what you want. I'm like, well, no, I'm actually looking for your insight and advice. Yeah. Because I only know what I know. And so, tell me what you think, or, how would you go about this if this were I always like to ask, if this were your money, how would you spend it? Would you spend it the same way? Oh, that's so
interesting. I went through this on like branding products not too long ago. I reached out to someone for like some branding products, and they just like sent me the online catalog, and I'm like, well, which ones of these go well? Like, what are the trends? Yeah. Like, which ones do people like? Like, which ones are people like going to throw in the garbage, not throw in the garbage, and da-da-da. And then I learned that my friend over at Blazoo, have you heard of Dean Caravellis?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He does this whole curated branding thing, and he says, because otherwise it falls into like people will keep the branding stuff because it has like value to it and it's something valuable, or they throw it away.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? It has to have like some meaning and stuff, but it was interesting. It was very frustrating. I was like, I don't know what I should get.
Yeah, we only know what we know. I was talking to a media buying group for our marketing, and same thing. I'm like, well, I'm looking. Don't just take my order. I'm not at a restaurant. Which ones convert better, knowing my business and help, I'm looking for this two-way dialogue. Right. So it's great, when hearing you talk about, helping folks see past the emotion of just falling in love with something. Cause I think it's really true. A lot of our clients they don't take, I would say most, probably 9 out of 10 don't take the highest offer, because it's just usually those are the people buying in because it's probably not the right natural cultural fit. So they're going to throw a little extra money there because they know that. So a lot of our clients will take a little less money knowing it's a better fit for the business longer term. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm like, okay, and that's why we call ourselves advisors. We're not bankers or brokers. We're technically both, but because it's not my decision, it's your decision. We're going to advise you.
Right.
But in the end, it's your choice. And that's a really good, I think, leading indicator of when they don't always take the highest number, you've thought through all the other value drivers and seen past the emotion of just taking
I've seen that in commercial real estate too. Sure. And I've experienced that actually personally. In my first building I sold, I ended up selling it to the Florida Bar Foundation that I just knew the people on the board, and I knew they'd be great stewards of the building. I knew what they were trying to do, which was a greater good, provide no cost legal services to those in need. And
right.
There was a bigger why versus some of the other people. No, there's nothing wrong with it.
Of course.
It was it's kind of, whether it's real estate or your business or otherwise, there's this personal aspect to it. And, you want to see what you built or you were involved with, to see that it, goes
the legacy.
On.
Yeah. And, so every time you drive by it, you kind of know the history there and what's been going on. Same thing. I was using that metaphor earlier about seeing your logo in the Little League field as a sponsor and how the pride it comes when it's yours, but you want it to still be proud of it when it maybe isn't yours in the future too, to know I had a hand in that and now it's going on and doing good things. And that's probably the number one thing clients are hesitant about in M&A is what's going to happen to what we've built, to my people.
It's like a baby.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that what I've spent all this time and hard work and energy and sacrifice, and blood, sweat, and tears for, continues on without me, in it. And, it's a really scary proposition. But that's where if you've got trusted advisors to help you through it, then you can feel good about that outcome versus the fear of change.
Well, I'm going to leave you with one question, unless you want to bring up something else afterwards. Because we always talk about mindset on this show, of course, being the Performance Mindset Show. What do you find, you've worked with so many entrepreneurs and founders, what's the one mindset shift that can help someone move from just running a business to truly building value?
I would say that it's been the biggest catalyst for me is not is shifting your mind from feeling bad or shameful for mistakes.
Ooh.
Just trying things. And if they don't work, pivoting and moving on and learning from that mistake. That growth mindset of, I think I'm going to try A. And if A doesn't work out, instead of just beating yourself up over A. Right. You just like, and have an awareness of when you're going to pull up from it and pivot. But, we've done that in our own business, the last couple of years specifically, what's the right business development profile and, how's the right relationship there? What kind of skill set and level? And we've toyed with that profile a few times and, didn't get it right in the beginning and have subsequently come into it. But one thing I love is with my leadership team, no one gets down on themselves for us having made those decisions and conversely mistakes and maybe not gotten that recipe right the first time. And now that it just has made us better. And so that's the biggest piece of advice I can give. The biggest mindset shift I think an entrepreneur can have is the mistakes aren't failures. Failure isn't really a thing. You just learn and you move from it, and you're smarter but for it. I always say the biggest and most expensive mistakes, air quote, have been the ones that have pushed my business so much further.
Oh, absolutely.
I
wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah.
Like if not for my mistakes.
Right.
So
yeah. And so when things get, when it feels, there've been those nights where you lay with your, at night and it's 3 a.m. and you're staring at the ceiling and you're toiling over something. I always keep in the back of my mind, like there's always something on the other side of it, one way or the other. Like you're going to get through it. And even if the way you attempt at getting through it isn't, is a air quote mistake, you're going to learn from it and pivot, and you're going to come right on the other side. And that was a big aha for me early on in the business.
Well, in most things, again, you can pivot from, you can recover from,
Sure.
and, sometimes it might take a little longer than expected, but you can always look back and play the tape and learn from it and move on.
Yeah.
So.
Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but it is that much more validating whenever it is, you finally come around on the other side. And even if the hole is big and it's going to take a while to dig yourself out of it, that's okay. Just seeing through it was a total game changer. So I'm a big fan of just giving it a shot, see what happens.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
No, thank you so much. It's so fun to just talk about all these big growth concepts and ideas and putting that thought leadership out in the world. It's so great to talk to like-minded folks in that vein.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, so, thank you for having me.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Oh, if someone wants to connect with you, is LinkedIn best, your website best?
Both, all of the above. LinkedIn, you can get to me directly. I check that fairly regularly, but you can also go to our website. And then my email is just my first initial last name @alignba.com. So shoot me a note.
That's a really good website.
Yeah, it's really easy to remember. And, happy to get in touch with anyone, any questions. Our team is myself and our team.
And you
very
help people
accessible.
not only that own businesses preparing to sell or about to sell or just kind of evaluating things, but do you also work on the buyer side?
We do sometimes, yeah.
So it depends on the buyer.
If it depends on the buyer, but we help a lot of folks who want to put together an acquisition strategy but aren't really sure how to start.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks who are looking to buy business for the first time. We can give them some coaching around that too. So absolutely. But I would say 90% of the time we work on what we call the sell side. But yeah, any questions about the market, if you're a business owner looking to exit, if you're someone who's looking to buy a business, or if you're a service provider to other businesses and, are just looking to network, please reach out to us. We have a whole formalized Friends of Align program where we love, we were talking earlier about the team that you need to put around a table. And so we love networking with those groups because we get asked all the time, who do you know that can help me with X or Y or Z? And so we want to be able to make those referrals and get folks in the hands of those individuals. So yeah, we welcome all of those types of outreach.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of the Performance Mindset Show. If today's episode gave you something to think about, share it and subscribe so you don't miss out on what's next. Want to go deeper? Grab my book, From Perfect to Real. It's all about dropping perfection and thriving your own way. You can also connect with me at beyondcommercial.com or amycalandrino.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and keep showing up for you. This is Amy Calandrino signing off.